Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and please, 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 please share this to your page, your profile. Start texting it to people. Start, sharing it in different groups that you're in. This is a really, really important topic, especially if you live in the state of Michigan, but it's going to affect the entire nation to come. We know that there's been big efforts to try to circumvent the will of the people with elections in the past, and we see a really big trick going on right now where there's a group that there's an effort being led by a former Michigan Democrat Party chair and a former Michigan Republican Party chair, and they have announced that they're going to do a ballot initiative to try to get a national popular vote on the ballot. So what would happen is that if it is passed, then whatever the popular vote outcome is, let's say in 2024 that you have Trump or Ron DeSantis on the ballot and he's going against Kamala Harris, and let's say he has enough votes for like electoral college, and it all comes down to Michigan for some reason, and we have passed this initiative, and because we've passed this initiative, and he lost the popular vote, then our electoral college ballots, our votes, would go to whoever won the popular vote. So we would be surrendering our will as Michiganders to whatever people say out in the California, New York, these highly populated areas that do not share quite the same views and goals as Michiganders. So if we vote for who we vote for, at least they might not be the winner, but let us cast our ballots. And there are other legislators that support this. There were some people who wined and dined them not too long ago, flew them out to special somewhere and tried to make the case. So there's other support for it, and we need to know exactly where our elected officials stand on this issue, because I don't care if they're Republican and I don't care if they're a Democrat. If they're going to say, hey, the will of the Michigan voters should not matter and that we should surrender that privilege, our rights to everyone else, our voice, so we can be overtaken by the population at large instead of honoring the will of the Michigan people, why are they your elected official if they're not out for the best interest of Michigan? I don't care if they're Republican or a Democrat. You need to know where they stand on this, so you need to know if they're worth supporting, ever, period. So we're going to break down why on earth, God's green earth, would Republicans support this, particularly a former party chair. And it's very simple. They actually gave it away in an interview they did with Laura Ingraham some time ago, and I have it chopped up, and we're going to run through the clips and we're going to reveal the big scheme and why someone who knows that this would basically be the end of the Republican Party would want to push something like this. There is a reason, and it's a pretty obvious one. It's a pretty obvious one. But before we jump into that, I do want to thank Brighter Michigan PAC for allowing me to use our studio. If I say something that triggers you, that you don't like, doesn't matter, because that's not how it works. I'm just using the space. They're not my boss, so they don't care. I don't care. There's no one to cry to. But there is something to cry into. If you would like to get some merchandise that I have, like a cup that says, well, I do have black tea mugs, but you are not that special. So there's something that you can get at blacktnews.com to catch all your, you don't need to get a leftist tear tumbler from Ben Shapiro. You could get this cute little mug and just cry all your tears in there. But there's no one else to complain to. You can just stop watching if I make you that upset. But please also visit blacktnews.com. Check out other merchandise. Like I said, we got stuff with Black T logo. We got The Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document with Frederick Douglass. That's from his speech, What is 4th of July to a Slave speech, that the left really tries to make it seem like he hated 4th of July. That's just a myth. It's a great speech. If you haven't read it, you should read it. Be better, not better. We got some cool pro-Trump merchandise. I voted for President Trump, and all I got was historic peace bills, border security, ISIS destroyed, energy independence, a bunch of other things in this lousy t-shirt. Got denounce white supremacy, defeat Joe Biden, with a list of his racist history on the back. So that's a good tool. You should get that. And the goat hoodie that I am wearing right now, I get tons of compliments on it. It's super comfortable. So go ahead and get yourself one today. Inflation has hit us all. So I've been informed by the third party who makes these babies that they're going to have to bump up the prices. So I'm not going to take the hit. So I got to bump up the prices too. So go ahead and buy your merchandise today while it is a lower cost. So let's jump into the story of the day. I am basically going to be talking about this national popular vote thing the whole entire time. Hopefully, I don't know if I will take up the whole hour, but it's important, so I want to talk about it and focus in on this. There's other news of the day. People are mad at Russell Brand because he's actually saying some things that make sense as being someone on the left. Of course, we have hearings going on the Capitol, but we can talk about that tomorrow. This is really, really dire, and we need to do something to stop this ballot initiative, whether stopping it from petition process or challenging it, or if we have to defeat it at the ballot box. But this is extraordinarily important, so I will take my time to really talk about it and dive into the reason why they're actually doing this. But firstly, I do have a meme of the day that I do want to share before I get into the heavy stuff. Horses at the border, illegals at the border. So Newsbusters put that together. I saw that on Twitter. And of course, you all probably know that Joe Biden decided to fire the horses, even though Border Patrol uses them near rivers to patrol the rivers. And they, of course, did not hit at all the Haitians coming over. That was a big fake news, but they don't care because it's more important that they pander and create a narrative than actually lead the country. So we live in a very sad state of affairs. So this is a pretty important topic to me because I worked at the Michigan Republican Party in 2016, and there's so many people, volunteers everywhere, not people who worked at the party, but just period, who worked so extraordinarily hard to get the outcome that we wanted. You know, I didn't put any like pre-bragging on. I was waiting just, that night, and we sacrificed. People were so hostile on both sides, but I mean, we really got people were hostile. I for the first time started running into people who were really going at me in a racial sort of way, and I've had black Democrats come at me for being a Republican before, but white liberals were coming at me hard. Calling me token and other kinds of things like that, which I'm seeing a lot of now as I grow my presence on TikTok and other social media. But it was really wild to me that people had the audacity. So election night, we were all excited. We were happy. We were crying. There were people who were happy crying, but we were laughing at the tears. I mean, people still go back and watch the montages of leftist tears overflowing and so on. But we were happy. We were proud to get that victory because not just because we have that shot of California and we get off on people's pain. That's not why. But we worked so hard to achieve that goal. So after the election is over, you're like, everyone accept the results of the election, right? That's what people wanted us to do in 2020, right? People wanted to accept that. That's not what they did in 2016. There was challenges. People couldn't accept it. People said he was a Russian puppet. The Russiagate thing. That's why they're mad at Russell Brand, because he pointed out the Russiagate thing was a conspiracy by the Clinton administration, and people knew it the whole entire time. And they had people who pushed the conspiracy on the news, pushing the conspiracy theory, even though it was fake. And there's people to this day who still believe that he's a Russian plant. Trump was. So So there was that narrative, but also the Jill Stein challenges. And so after elections, people usually chill, they relax a bit, and we had to go right to, doing the recounts, which was really annoying and so on. But eventually, it stopped in Michigan, and we went on. And so the day we cast our electoral ballots. The day we cast our electoral ballots, I invited my family, and so there was a lot of protesters outside, and people who were electors, they got a lot of letters from people all over the country, from California, from New York, but really from these big cities. It wasn't a lot of people from Michigan saying, "Hey, I want you to change the result of the election in Michigan." It was people from the outside trying to, in some cases, intimidate, in some cases just beg, cryingly, "Please don't do this, save our democracy, racism, blah, blah, blah." And all the hysterical stuff they were saying. And that's what people were saying, protesting. It was a big crowd of, pretty much only white people from I remember, like saying, like, "Save it from racism." And I'm a black person, proud of my accomplishment that we got done in Michigan. And they're like, "We don't care what you did. We don't care how you voted. We just care that our feelings are hurt." Blah, 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 racism, blah, 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 blah. And so it just was really an interesting juxtaposition. And so when my dad showed up, he just like walked through the crowd and he's like strutting, and he's like, "God bless Trump. God bless Trump." And they're looking like confused, because black people aren't supposed to do that, according to them, I suppose. And so when we try to get our ceremony going, the procedures going to actually cast electoral ballot votes, they're chanting, like, singing, butchering the song "We Shall Overcome." They're chanting like, "No hate, no something something USA, racism, KKK," some kind of chants and stuff. And I'm looking at them outside, and I'm taking notice of the people inside. And we had diversity as far as the people who were actually casting the ballots. The electors. We had their families there and other activists. And I'm like, there's a lot more minorities in here actually happy with what was accomplished than the people trying to take that away. And they're trying to make it seem like they're I don't know, some kind of virtuous freedom fighters for people like me, yet they don't care about what I actually did, what I accomplished, what I thought, and why I voted the way that I voted, or that our side succeeded. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But to have this self-righteous attitude that them trying to get us to change our mind, like they're trying to save us from ourselves, no. No. You don't care about me as an individual. You only use my color for your own amusement and own end. Diversity is a lie because you don't actually care about diverse thoughts and so on. So anyway, we ended up casting the electors. I ended up going to the inauguration. I was at the inaugural ball, and they acted a fool down there too. Their Antifa or who was becoming Antifa were down there attacking helpless women when they could find them. Like, I literally thought me and my sisters were gonna have to like square up with people in our dresses, in our high heels and so on. But that actually happened. There was a limo that was set on fire during like the parade and all kinds of other stuff. And I didn't end up getting into any physical altercations, but don't try us. Yanktown don't back down. But we were ready to go if we had to go, but thankfully no one tried it with us. But they were acting a fool down there. And then Trump was the president. They never really recovered from that mentally, the Democrats. So now we're in a position where the Democrats they were surprised that Trump won in 2016, totally took him by surprise. Hillary Clinton thought that once he was the nominee, that was basically easy sailing. If you read her emails, which I totally read those emails, they're very entertaining. It seemed like her staff her staff was concerned that was her main priority. Like that was her strategy, getting Trump to be the nominee. And the people were concerned from our side that, like, when he becomes a nominee, they're going to dump all the stuff on him. They're nice to get him to be the nominee. Now they're just going to destroy him. And that was, I guess, their goal, because they did give him a ton of free media time, more than any of the candidates. He didn't have to spend all the money that Hillary and them did. He had so much free media. But she underestimated the fact that she was way more unpopular, she's way more unfavorable than he was, and he ended up winning. And they couldn't fathom it. They were upset, and they never really recovered. They pushed things like the Russia collusion hoax, which is a hoax, always has been a hoax. So they just couldn't accept it. So since then, they've been plotting ways to just totally destroy him. Time and time again, New York Times would repeatedly have these covers like meltdown, and things didn't keep happening. They kept saying, well, it's going to go bad, and the economy kept doing well, and they just didn't have a way to win until we started doing lockdowns. They started changing election rules everywhere. They did the mail-in ballots, and at the same time, they had so much information going out to people, and the media was just doing hit job after hit job after hit job. They lied on him his continuous presidency, and it just didn't get any better at all toward the end. So you had people who Joe Biden can't inspire anyone, excite anyone, yet people were determined to vote for him because they thought Trump was worse. So they bended the entire country, brought it to its knees in order to defeat Donald Trump. Social media censored the New York Post, the oldest paper in the country, over a story that was 100% true. And they said it was because it was hacked. It wasn't hacked. The Hunter Biden story. They wouldn't even let there be an October surprise or anything like that. They wouldn't allow that. Joe Biden was their guy. Joe Biden was the guy that they fought for. And so you have all these measures they had with the drop boxes we have with the mail-in ballots. There's some measures that people are trying to keep and continue. So they just want to regulate it. They want to tweak it. So you've seen states like Georgia and other places trying to tweak, systems, Arizona. And they're making it seem like these laws are racist. They're saying black people can't get IDs and other kind of nonsense if you want any sort of voter integrity thing. So they're using, these Republicans, we can't trust them because they're racist, and they're trying to make these laws, so we have to change things federally. So they're trying to pass legislation that would take a lot of things that are in our hands locally and put it in their hands for the election, which is funny. And I wish I had this clip on me. But in 2016, they asked Obama, what do you think about Trump saying the election is rigged? And he's just like flabbergasted. He said, what does that even mean? Now, I think it probably meant that Trump just thought how he was treated was unfair. At the time, anyway, I would hypothesize. But Obama was like, the federal government doesn't run elections. So in other words, we don't have the power to cheat like that for them. So don't you find it curious that the Democrats keep trying to federalize our elections? They probably listened to Obama and said, oh, he has a point. We got to do something about that. So let's get to the national popular vote. So for some time, we know that Trump lost a popular vote, at least that's where the data is, whether you believe it or not. With Biden, lost it against Hillary. And it seems like that's the trend. Now, popular vote, of course, is not a thing. We are not a mob rule society. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. We are not meant to just everybody throw your hat in, and let the chips fall where they may. We have the electoral college set up. So the people in California who have an enormous population, or the people in New York who has an enormous population, will not just overwhelm all the people in our state, in other states, and other people have a voice that's heard. It is very important that we keep that intact. Now we have someone trying to kind of do a workaround. So I'm gonna break down. Now people might be like, why is there bipartisan support? It's not really that bipartisan. It's a lot of leftists, a lot of globalist type money into this push. But you may be wondering why former chair of the Michigan Republican Party is into this. And I'm gonna break this down. It's actually really simple. So there was this interview that they had with Laura Ingraham some time ago, and they kind of gave it away. So let's go through it.
All right, here now to respond is Saul Anousis, senior consultant to the National Popular Vote Initiative. Saul, you're an old friend, and it's wild that you're doing this because you and Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg and George Soros's kids are all on the same side. So why did a good Republican from Michigan decide to throw in with all those characters for what, the betterment of the country?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a nuance here in the sense that the Democrats do want to eliminate the Electoral College. There's two proposals out there. One that, as you mentioned, the Democrats have been pushing to eliminate the Electoral College. And then one that I'm proposing and working with, which basically is a bipartisan approach that basically wants to use the national popular vote and keep the Electoral College. So you've got two different proposals that a lot of people confuse all the time.
Right, but you claim you don't want to abolish the Electoral College.
We don't claim it, we just don't.
Well, but the problem is, if states, in your plan, states would have the right not to give their delegates to the person who wins in the state, to the candidate who wins in the state, they would be obligated or could vote for the candidate who won the most popular vote. So, in other words, if Trump wins Texas, then under your plan, if this passed in the state legislature in Texas they would say, oh no, they're all going to go to Kamala Harris.
Right.
How is that fair to the people of Texas?
She said, how's that fair to the people of Texas? It's not. He's going to claim that it is and try to explain it off. So this is a former chair of the Michigan Republican Party. I don't know him very well personally. I've met him in an interview and stuff before, not on the show, but just for work stuff before. But this is really troubling because you think, why would someone do this? And so basically he's saying that it's different than, like, there's people out there who want to abolish the Electoral College. I'm sure you guys have heard that. You've seen that, especially when Trump won in 2016. I mean, Trump said it not too long ago, years ago. I think when Obama beat Romney, maybe, or it might have been Romney, but there's always an old tweet, right? But thank God that, Trump isn't a founding father. He didn't write the Constitution, and hence has learned that it serves a better purpose. So there's people who want to just abolish it. And so he's trying to do kind of a sleight of hand and say, we're not going to abolish it. We're just going to put in the legislation so the states can decide whether or not they're going to just surrender their power to the popular vote. So the outcome is going to be the same, but they're trying to convince you that it's not the same thing. So I guess technically still the states would have the power to do that, but you're still superseding how the function of the Electoral College is supposed to be. And again, if you have any Republican or Democrat legislator that is planning to support this, to push this, they do not deserve your support. You are a Michigander. They should be out with whatever is the best interest and the will of the Michigan people. If they are willing to surrender the power of the Michigan people to California, to New York, to other places where there's really big populations, why are they representing you? The question is, the answer is they're not representing you. So why would you allow them to continue representing you? So you need to know, this is something you need to ask a politician when you see them face to face at any of these meetings that you go to. You need to know where they stand on this. This is important. This is so important, and they don't deserve your support if they're going to support something like this. I'm dead serious. I don't care who it is.
Well, it's very fair because what happens is we want to make sure that every voter in every state is politically relevant in every election. And under the current system, 4 out of 5 Americans live in flyover states. So today, for all practical purposes, 95 to 90% of all the money is spent in 10 states or less. and we elect basically the president of the battleground states of America versus the president of the United States of America.
Obama got elected twice. What do you mean? The battleground states, he won a fairly broad section of the country.
But it doesn't matter. But look, you and I could sit down within 3 minutes and identify where 40 to 42 states are going to vote in the 2020 election, right? And so both campaigns are going to basically...
Okay, so the argument is that, well, the way the things are now, we know that there's a couple battleground states and people will go to the battleground states to campaign. They won't go, like a Democrat doesn't need to go to California to make sure that that's going to be in the bag for an election. Now, people will still go, but they're not going to spend as much time there as they might spend in Michigan if Michigan is a battleground, and it's not always that, or Wisconsin, or wherever they feel is a battleground. They'll do the data. People move, things shift. There's new battleground states all the time. I mean, Dems are trying to make Texas a thing, you know, and other, you know, southern states and go after them. So people move, things shift. But, you know, California, which Laura's going to make a point, well, they vote a particular way because that's how the people are, those are their values. So it's not about really disenfranchising them at all. That it's fine that they always vote the way that they vote. That's how they feel. But he's saying it's a bad thing that we will go to these battleground states, and that's where we have it at, and it disenfranchises everyone else, and we should be voting for getting every vote or being engaging for every vote possible. But did you catch the giveaway? What he said? Did you catch the giveaway? I'm going to play it again. I'm going to play it again, and I'm going to stop it when he gets to the part.
Well, it's very fair because what happens is we want to make sure that every voter in every state is politically relevant in every election. And under the current system, 4 out of 5 Americans live in flyover states. So today, for all practical purposes, 95 to 90% of all the money is spent in 10 states or less.
95% of the money is spent in 10 states or less. 95% of the money is spent in 10 states or less. That's what this is about. That's why someone like him would do something like this. He's being paid, obviously. He's a consultant. They're cutting his checks. They want more money in politics. They want more money engaged. We're already to the point where we're spending $1 billion in a presidential election. Now, these battleground states, people will spend a lot of it in elections, but the media market in areas like Michigan or Wisconsin or so on, they're going to be a lot less expensive than if you have to compete for time in like LA and other places, right? And then you really have to spend money to change the mind of those voters in those heavily blue areas that have a lot of population. So Republicans are going to have to raise buttloads of money, crazy amount of money. If they change this right now, like in the next election, and when there's 2024, there's no way that Republicans will win this. And I'm sure they know this. He's going to make it a case otherwise, but I'm sure he knows better. I'm sure everyone knows better. That's why the Democrats are supporting this, because they know they have the upper hand. But people would support it, especially consultants, because if you have to pour more money into the system, pour more money into politics, then the consultants will get paid more. Then their friends will get paid more. Then lobbyists will have to do more. It's all about money. It's not rocket science. It's about money. They want more money involved with the system. Politics can be very lucrative. If you know the system, how to work it. I would say if you're good at your job, though, there's plenty of people who are not great, but get rehired to do campaigns time and time again. Will have no wins under their belt, or very few, and still get hired again and again. It's crazy. But they want their checks. That's why people do it. That's why people push it. I don't know why all Republicans at large might want to support it, but he just gave it away. Because right now, too much of the money spent on elections is spent in battleground states. And if it was dispersed more, we'd have to raise more and spend more. He didn't say that, but you can read between the lines. or should be able to. So that is why I believe a former chair of the Michigan Republican Party could betray us so for the almighty dollar. That's what this is about. So when they try to convince you of the argument, which I don't think he makes a good argument, I'm surprised that, because I think this was from his page where I ripped it from, so that's amazing. On YouTube. Because I'd want that clip gone forever. But thank goodness that Laura Preston, despite him being an old friend. But it's about money. It's about money. For the Democrats, it's about the win. There's rhinos, they're about the money. Democrats are about the power, period, all the time. All the time. They don't need the opposition. They don't, Republicans can be like, we want to win sometimes, you take one, I take one. Democrats are like, no, we want it all the time, forever. And we're mad when we lose and we can't accept it, and we will do everything to undermine you. As a matter of fact, Obama, when Trump was coming in, or before he was officially elected, they were working to undermine him. And then when he was elected, but not quite the president, they were working to undermine him. And they worked to undermine him to install someone from the former administration. That's the most corrupt thing. That Biden is president right now. But that they can't accept when they lose. And they don't really take it lying down. Which I guess you can appreciate in some sense if they didn't have heinous plans to put into action. If they wouldn't keep going so far left. But you don't have moderates in charge. And even people who they thought might be moderate, a lot of people thought Joe Biden was going to lead in the middle. Well, they should have known better, honestly. Especially when you saw kind of people he was hiring on his campaign, how easily he moved when the Twitter mob was like, no, you have to get rid of the Hyde Amendment. And he was like, okay, even though before it was a long-standing Catholic belief. And now it was like, well, everyone had to accept it because that's how you got budgets passed. And now it's just not kind of a thing anymore. Or he doesn't want it to be a thing. Rather. Let's go on.
Would Trump have gotten elected under your plan?
Absolutely.
I'm going to have to play that again, but that is a lie. That is a lie. Lying through the teeth.
Would Trump have gotten elected under your plan?
Absolutely. I agree. As President Trump said, he said if it would have been a national popular vote, he would have campaigned around the entire country. President Trump only campaigned in 13 states.
And I adore Trump. I really do. I love him to pieces. But that was for his ego. He'd been wrong. He would have been wrong. He would have been wrong. Look at the people of California right now. Of course, you're talking about what would have happened in 2016 if he had campaigned differently. But they had an opportunity for a recall election, and people still chose to keep Gavin Newsom. And when you look at exit polling, people are like, we didn't mind the lockdown so much. It was amazing. But some people like being bound. It takes a while for people's switches to flip. When you hear people red pill, they're red pilled. Don't they describe a journey? One thing didn't sound right, so they kind of started to question things here and there, and eventually they're like, oh my gosh, if they're lying about this, what else could they be lying about? And then they just start diving in the rabbit hole, and then they come out wearing a Trump hat or something. But it takes time. Brandon Straka, who's over the walkaway movement, he talked about how when he started having his red-pilled moment, he kind of gave them an opportunity, he wanted it to not be true, all the stuff that he was starting to realize. He was ready to turn around and still go back in his bubble. But he was pushed into reality to see how, the media and Democrats were lying to him all this time. But that's the story about a lot of people. They would rather not even accept the truth when it's staring them right in the face if they can help it. So it takes time to make that case to people. It could take multiple elections, as a matter of fact. So no, I adore him so much. But I don't believe that Trump, if he would have just campaigned some more in California, do I think he would have just won that state in 2016? No, I don't believe so. Not California. So this belief that they have that he would have just took the win, that it's just going to be so easy, like Republicans just flip a switch and be like, okay, we're going to campaign for the popular vote now. Now, everyone knows you don't have to do that because that's not the name of the game. And obviously people will do different strategies if that becomes the game. But Republicans are not up for that right now. If it was so easy for them to do that, Democrats wouldn't be pushing and talking about abolishing the Electoral College. And you wouldn't have the children of George Soros and all these people donating to this group, working with Saul to make it happen.
Trump would.
Right? So you expect people in the other 30.
Why would anyone campaign in Iowa or in New Hampshire under a national popular
because
vote? In the top four most populous states in the country are 36% of the population.
So you believe,
Why?
how about the top 50 cities in the country?
Almost all of them. The top 20 is where all the population
Okay, so the top 50 make up what percentage of the national popular vote?
It doesn't matter.
Sure
If
it does. If the top 50 cities...
There's a limited amount of time, Saul.
Okay, so the top 50 cities make up 15% of the vote.
Why do you want to disenfranchise
I don't want to
disenfranchise.
I want every voter in every state to be politically relevant and count. Today, if you live in a flyover state...
They're not relevant. They're not politically irrelevant.
Right now, if you live in a... Look, we know today where Utah's going to vote. We know where Oklahoma's going to vote. We know where California's going to vote. We know where Texas is going to vote.
Yeah, because they're conservative
so
states.
we don't,
Big deal.
We don't care.
Exactly. Big deal. We know how they're going to vote because they're Republicans or they're Democrats. That's how they vote. They vote with their values, so they're pretty dead on. Swing states are swing states because they're purple. There's a mix. So you have to convince enough independents or whatever to swing the election and make your case. That's why they call them swing states. But why would people go to Iowa and other states to try to make up those numbers when they could go hit, New York City, they could hit LA, go to really populated areas? Why would they go out to the boonies to your farm to campaign when they got to take care of that? Especially when they got to raise all this money so they can spend it in, big media markets like LA and so on. Why would they do that? It's not going to make everyone campaign hard for every single vote. They're going to do in targeted areas like they do with the Electoral College. But the system that we have right now, it doesn't disenfranchise people. What we're doing right now, you still vote for the people who go to Congress. You vote for your congressman, your senator. And they're supposed to all work together. There's supposed to be checks and balances. And they're supposed to be able to confirm who's going to be working with the president when he tries to, you nominate someone and they have to pick. They have to vote for people when they do those Supreme Court justices and so on. There's checks and balances. It's a whole system. And I know he knows this.
The problem with your argument is the folks who are on your side are all globalists who want to...
It's not true.
Okay.
I mean, Fred Thompson agrees with us. Newt Gingrich agrees with us. Tom Tancredo...
Fred Thompson is dead.
He is. So he did believe in us before he died.
He can't be having an opinion on this.
Well, he
right
had
now.
an opinion before he died.
Okay.
That's okay,
but
too.
But the people who are behind the big efforts, the big money efforts, who pays your salary, for instance?
So National Popular Vote?
Okay, and George Soros' son and daughter's foundation is given to you, correct?
I believe his son's...
$1 million,
yeah,
correct?
His son's
the Tides Foundation, $25,000.
Beyond that, I really don't know.
Steven Silberstein Foundation, $1 million. Who in that group is a conservative?
None of them, but Tom Alasanos, who gave over $10 million, is a conservative, pro-life, anti-tax.
The first guy, the guy who runs it now, Coscos, he's a big liberal, giving $14 million to the Democrats.
Yeah, he's a big liberal.
So you could throw a few.
So just because there's a bunch of liberals,
voices.
but just because there's a bunch of liberals backing it, you think it's a bad idea?
So you actually think?
No, that doesn't make it a bad idea automatically, but it does send up red flags. The question, why? Why? Are you throwing your hat in with them? Why are you all working together? Why should we not be concerned? It's concerning. It's concerning. The people that you're hooked up with, it's concerning, sir. And obviously there's money pouring in. They do cut him a check. And he already said in the interview, we played it twice. The problem with the method that we have right now is that 95% of the money goes and is invested in swing states. And they want it in other areas. They want it spent in other areas. And they'll want to have an excuse to raise more money so they can reach more people. So they can pay themselves and pay off their buddies and so on. It's politics is such a big system. And just in general, there's like barely anything at all that the government does just in the interest of people. Even something like the school lunch program is a subsidy program. It's not for the children. Though I did eat free lunch from time to time. I'm not saying it's not a good and needed program, but I'm saying that people have reasons always for what they do. Always. And it normally comes down to money. Mostly comes down to money. I had another clip. Oh, did I already play this?
Right, so you expect people in the other 30...
Why would anyone campaign?
There was another piece when they start talking about what the framers wanted. And so he tried to play it as if what they were doing was fine. And she was like, no, this isn't what they wanted. And then he said, you know, these white racists or something to that regard. And I'll find it and I'll put it on my profile, I guess. So he's just also used the language of like these people who will try to demean the Constitution when they're pushing things like 1619 Project, critical race theory, and so on. When people try to argue with me, when I try to stand up for my rights on TikTok, and someone will say something crazy like the Constitution wasn't created for brown people. So he's using similar language, or at least he did. And I apologize for not having that clip. But I guarantee you he said it. So you can kind of see their angle where they will push it. I'm sure they'll make the Constitution is flawed because these guys are racist. I'm sure I'll get mailers in my neighborhood like that. And it doesn't matter. Like yesterday I had a friend on the show, we were talking about particular lies or way that people will frame things. And even if they were frame it in a dishonest way, what does it matter to the Democrats if they were successful in what they accomplished? What does it matter? If Senator Harry Reid lied about Mitt Romney paying income taxes, he said he didn't care. He got the result he wanted. He didn't care. Do you think Hillary and them care about lying about the Russia collusion stuff and planning that story? What do they care? Biden flat out didn't care about people up in arms about Afghanistan. Politico's playbook, I've talked about this on the show. They had an excerpt of, I believe it was Adam Holbrook's diary, talking when he was going over what Joe Biden had said some years ago. I think it was in 2011, about how he wanted to pull out of Afghanistan. And someone said, well, what about the consequences? What'll happen to like the women in Kabul and other places when the Taliban take over? And he said, they got away with it in Vietnam. We got away with it in Vietnam. So in other words, people are wondering, why would he do all this? It's so crazy. Because he wanted to pull out and he knew he could get away with it because the media would cover for him. And the media was outraged for a little bit in covering the story. But overall, he's not incorrect. And hopefully something will happen and people will be held accountable. Right now, you know, they're having hearings from the military talking. But they lied about they did so many ridiculous things that didn't make any sense. If this was Trump, they wouldn't have allowed him to do the crazy stuff that Biden did. Doesn't make any sense how that pullout was. But he just figured he could get away with it. There's no other explanation that makes sense. Because he was told, he knew it was a bad decision. But he just didn't want to be there. And if our troops had to go, like, not make it home, or if the people of Afghanistan had to suffer, they didn't care. They lied about that drone strike. They said the strike was true and just. They said there was a secondary explosion that killed civilians from the bombs that were in the car. There was no secondary explosion. There was no bomb. You bombed an aid worker who brought home canisters of water for his village because they had a shortage, and you killed 10 civilians, and I think 7 of them were kids. And then the New York Times reported it, and then they started asking more questions like, we're investigating. Rand Paul's like, how do you not know this? Because you should have had this information together before you decided to drone strike innocent civilians. So this is something you should have known prior to sending the bombs. And now they're like, oh, well, we're investigating it. Yeah, it's true. We made a boo-boo. Heads should roll. Why did you lie to us? Making a mistake is one thing, but you flat out lied. You flat out lied. But Biden in the long run thinks he can get away with all this stuff because he's gotten away with so much. He's gotten away with so much already. This man, well, they were asking him about packing some, I think it was packing Supreme Court questions, or it was a question about the Supreme Court, and the reporters are just like, hey, this is the thing that readers want to know, and he's like, I don't want to, and he's basically like, I don't want to change the subject because it's going to give them something to talk about. Well, people should be talking about it, but he knew he didn't have to answer those questions. He knew he didn't have to answer those questions. So I want him to be wrong. I want people to pay. I want heads to roll for the wrongs that they've done. But he knows he can get away with it because the media will be on their side. So this is actually the really big problem, and Saul's full of it. Any Republican who thinks is a good idea in the long run, Michigan or any other state surrendering their will to the popular vote, don't vote for those people. I don't care if they're Republicans. Don't vote for those people. Go ask everyone you know how they feel about this issue. Go ask everyone you know who is elected and see where they fall on this, because this is important. If they don't believe in standing up for the will of the Michigan voters, they don't need to represent you. Go vote for someone else. I'm dead serious about that. But Democrats know. When people talk about election fraud, we've had this conversation a lot on the show. I've gone to a lot of events. People talk about it, rallies, and so on. Here's the truth. Here's the stone cold truth. I don't care what election measures you put in place. You can have the most strict voter ID, signature, verification processes. Everybody go vote on election day. Actually, that would probably change a lot of things if we only had voting on election day. But everywhere. I don't know. But you could put in whatever measures you want. But if we don't do something about the media divide and how much of a monopoly they have on the minds of the general population, we won't win elections. We won't win elections. Oh, Will Tucker and all of them, they get such good ratings. Okay, but there's still 5, 6, 7 other networks getting millions of views. Yeah, I know Greg Gutfeld's kicking people's butt, but there's still a plethora of other channels. In other countries, in Mexico, my family went to Mexico on a mission trip, and there's a lot of people coming over, obviously, and Democrats want to make those folks be able to vote and stuff. They listen to CNN, and if you think it's bad over here, it's certainly bad over there. They thought George Floyd was a hero. Obama was just a great Christian man. That Trump was a racist, and all kinds of just the how the narrative is, and you're like, what? That's how they push it over there. So you got to think about how they have so much control with the mainstream media, and then the social media. They play on the teams of the Democrat politicians. There are people who left social media and went to go join Kamala, or they left Kamala to join the social media positions, and so on. They restricted the New York Post story about Hunter Biden. People couldn't even share it. You have the fact checkers fact-checking you. That when there was the document going on, or the infographic about how much machinery was left behind in Afghanistan, they flagged a bunch of people, said, well, this is missing context, or kind of false or something. And I'm just like, what? And I look and I read the article, I'm like, oh, so a lot of this stuff, we don't know if it's in use anymore, but they don't know what the number is. If you're going to fact check, I think that was rated kind of false. I don't think it was missing context. But I'm just like, why you're fact checking? You don't have the answer. Could you at least say inconclusive or something? You just. But if this was something that was hurting Trump and making Trump look bad, they'd have been like, mostly true. Or half true, half false. They play games with those, how they fact check stuff. They play games. People were upset the other day because Peter Ducey's dad was interviewing him on Fox or asking questions, or like, people talk about Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo, but what about the Duceys? Andrew Cuomo was governor. They're two reporters talking to each other. It's not even in the same sphere of reality. Like, why would you bring that up? They're just not objective and critical thinkers at all about this stuff. So anyway, they have the mainstream media, and they're indoctrinating your kids in college. I was talking to someone the other day at Mackinac Island, someone who's going to be running against Rashida Tlaib, and he said that his family is pretty conservative, but his brother, he said, went to Ann Arbor and got indoctrinated. That happens to quite a few people in college because they're very, very liberal. But they're not waiting for college to indoctrinate your kids. They do that in high school. They'll do it in middle school. Now they'll even do it in elementary. Some of the stuff that they're pushing with the critical race theory, there's one account, and I'll have to play a lot of clips from them going forward. They just watch like Zoom meetings that educators will have about like critical race theory. And there was one clip I saw yesterday. Actually, my friend Brian, who was on here yesterday, showed it to me, the clip of teachers who are like, well, the laws say that banned critical race theory. It doesn't say that I can't answer questions. So I'll just let my class know that they can ask me questions, and then I'll answer it, and then that's how I'll decide how I'll put those things in my curriculum. So they're finding out ways to go around the laws because they're just so pressed to still teach your kids to be hyper racial 100% of the time. 100% of the time. They're not teaching it in schools. Yes, they are. Don't be ridiculous. They absolutely are. These people said they want to change the world. I wrote an article about this on blacktnews.com. If you wanted to change the world, would you wait until your kid maybe took a college course when they're studying law? Would you risk that? Because you're only getting a small percentage of people, or are you going to teach them certain values about it, speckled throughout the school system? Because that's what we're seeing. And it's not just that the TV shows you watch. It's everywhere. So Democrats know they really don't have to cheat. If they can push out as many raw numbers as possible, then they know that it's pretty much in the bag for them because they control the culture, they control the news, they control social media. And if Republicans do not find a way to break through that, that's really what I wanted Trump to do. Like, I know he's interested in other races and so on and is endorsing people here and there for this thing. I think he should have got with some people to try to break through this media barrier. That's what I think. Whether it's like doing a platform, and not making it so Trumpian, but like pushing something that can be widespread, or what if, you know, lending his expertise to entertainment or something, so we can start fighting back on different fronts. That's one reason why I do this show, to break through and push through. That's one reason why I spend so much time on TikTok. There's a lot of young and dumb people on that app, but I'm trying. I'm trying really hard. I'm trying really hard. But this is the area where we are lacking. Jocelyn Benson talked about, when I went to the Democrat picnic, they didn't know I was Republican. When I went there, you know, she talked about how in Michigan we have same-day voter registration, so you can go on election day, you can go register to vote and then vote. And she said a majority of people who took advantage of that were people under 30. Now, if you're a young kid under 30 and you're going to go like vote on election day, you wait to the last possible minute to do this. What are the odds that you think this is someone who is a truly informed voter? They don't care if their voters are informed. They were like, get your ballot, turn it in, get your ballot, turn it in right away, as soon as you get it. It's like, aren't y'all gonna let debates happen? Aren't you gonna see what other issues might arise? See if there's an October surprise? You just want people turning their ballots? Right? Why? Because you don't want them to change their minds, and you think right now you have them. And they were right in a lot of cases. There are people who didn't really want to vote, but they pressured people to vote. There was an ad that came on. I was watching Bounce TV. It's like an urban channel. I was watching Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy. And then the commercial came on, and it was a pack, and it said people can look up and see if you voted. And it was really creepy, kind of how it was. And then they played this commercial. It was basically the same commercial, but a little bit different again. And then they showed like a Joe Biden commercial, and then they showed a Gary Peters commercial, and then they showed the PAC commercial again, and then they showed it again. And I just looked at my sister, I'm like, it kind of, how they worded it, how they did it, it kind of seemed like they just threatened a bit. And they did not say that people will be able to look up and see who you voted for. But if you don't know that, and you see that commercial, and you are just kind of filled with, oh man, what if Trump wins and people like get on me and try to see if I voted or not? And then they send out mailers like that too to people. And people who were a little political savvy said they had to kind of do a double take at it. People were pressured. I see so many people say, I should have never let you guys convince me to vote for Joe Biden. I see that time and time again on social media. People say that. So the Democrats know if they can get this national popular vote thing together at the same time where they're working to really have, a takeover with our elections on a federal level, they're playing for keeps. They are playing for keeps. And then, so they have that going on, and then there's people who are ingrained in sort of the institution, like you have General Milley, who flat out made deals or said that he would call China if America was going to attack in the line, and everyone should be concerned about that, I think. But you see people on the left that are like, no, he just did his duty. That's what he was supposed to do. Thank God for patriots like him who would circumvent the will of the American president. If somebody did that to Obama, they put his head on a stick. But they're like, oh, so how brave, how stunning. So Democrats aren't playing, you take one, I take one, or I'll take two, you take 1.5, or just like a half or quarter. That's not what they want. They want the total domination. And I feel like there's Republicans out there in leadership and stuff that feel that their party they don't mind losing, and they can talk about, how they can rally up and do stuff and try to get, people donate money, and they're like, we're in the good fight. But it's like, well, where were you when you had the power? And Trump pushed for stuff, when he was president, he got stuff done. But it definitely felt kind of a different way before. And there's people who kind of feel like they've given up right now. I'm not saying the fight we should see. I'm not saying the fight that we should see with Biden being so terrible. And I understand that Republicans are not in power and the Democrats are in power. But I don't have a lot of great confidence. So anyway, we can't let them take the will of the Michigan voters away too. In other states, please don't allow them to do this, because that's not going to be just a thing that they're going to push here. They got millions of dollars pouring into this thing. They're going to do it other places. Some of George Soros, will his family get involved with this and other people? This is not a one and done thing. They're going to really try. They're going to really try to do this. So we got to be on it. We know why they're doing it, because they're greedy and they want money. Well, the Democrats want to win. Republicans involved with this are greedy and they want money. They're greedy and they want money. And they know good and well that Republicans will lose. And maybe they feel like eventually Republicans will figure it out. I don't think Democrats are going to give us that opportunity. They're playing for keeps in the long run. And even if we can get our guy in, they're going to put so many measures in place that I don't know if it'll matter in the long run. Ben Shapiro did a pretty good show talking about, are we at the point where it even matters if your guy wins, my guy wins, just because of how people like Kelly, General Kelly, people just kind of devoted into that institution who will undermine the president. So that's pretty much all I got for you. But we talked up the hour. I told you that we would talk about this. Please, 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 please call up your elected officials and find out where they are with this. Do not let this stand. Do not let this stand. It's a really terrible, terrible policy. It'll be so bad for Michigan. It'll be so bad for the country. It's not fair to Michiganders. Like, going back to that day when we cast the votes for Trump, the electoral votes, I worked very hard for that outcome. And I know not everyone was happy. And, Democrats get to do that all the time because it's very rare that Michigan goes the way of a Republican. And the RNC had some good data about Michigan winning, but there are some people that did not think that was going to happen. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. That it took some people by surprise. But if we cast if the will of the Michigan people and our popular vote decides that if it's Kamala Harris or whoever the Democrat nominee is, then that's what it is. But if it is a Republican, that's what it is. And people need to respect that. We can be upset. We can shed a few tears, whatever. But we got to get over it and move on. But that's how our elections work. But it's not mob rule. And we certainly shouldn't surrender it to other people, to other states. That would be crazy. And any person who claims to want to represent you and claims they have your best interest at heart, but is willing to circumvent the will of the Michigan people, they do not have your best interest at heart. And we need to stop this. We need to stop them. And it's all for money and greed. I do want to thank you guys for listening today. I do want to encourage you, if you enjoy this, to please go to blacktnews.com/donate. I think it's important what I do. Like I said, I'm really passionate about trying to break through that barrier about what I do. Someone in the comments told me don't give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep doing this, but it is a lot easier when I have support. And I thank you to everyone who shared, everyone who liked the page. Please make sure you're liking my Facebook page, that you're liking my YouTube page, and that you hit the notification bell, because just because you subscribe, they don't think you deserve the notifications of when I go live. So please make sure you're hitting that notification bell. Make sure that you're following me on TikTok if you're on TikTok and Instagram. All my handles for all that stuff is @BlackTNews, @BlackTNews. My handle for Twitter is @TrueBlackT. So please follow me on social media. Please drop your email on the website, to get alerts and updates and stuff. But if you would like to support blacktnews.com, please go to blacktnews.com/donate and consider leaving a donation, whatever you can, whether it's $5, $25, $50, $100. There's a lot of things I want to do at Black T News, and I can get there a lot faster if you're willing to give your support. So please consider leaving a donation. And then also consider buying some merchandise from the store. I was literally working on some before I went live. So I'm going to have some new stuff on there soon. But, I do have this "You Are Not That Special" shirt. And I do also have this cute little, shady saying also on mugs. So imagine being at work and seeing, drinking out of that cup and staring at your coworker who is a little annoying, but it needs to hear this message. So you should get that for yourself, someone you care about, someone you love. We got these cool shirts. We got other stuff with the Black Tea News logo. I get thank you to everyone who complimented the logo. I do design all that stuff myself. The hoodie that I have on right now, the GOAT hoodie, if you want it, please consider getting it today, because inflation is affecting us all. And my suppliers, they sent out, the site that I do the shirts with, design it on, they said their suppliers are going to have to raise it. So they have to raise it, so I have to raise it. So go ahead and get it today. If you see this tomorrow, you can still get it whenever. But I just want to give you the heads up. If you were considering it and you were eyeing it, go ahead and pick it up today. And I do have it in other colors, because people are like, oh my gosh, I might spill something on white. I might ruin it. I have it in pink. I have it in a dark red, and a dark blue, and black. So go ahead and pick up the GOAT hoodie. And the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt. Got that in short sleeve. I have a long sleeve one, and on the back it has a list of the racist stuff that Joe Biden did. And we got Trump stuff. I am not the victim you're looking for. I'm very, I do love that shirt a lot. And then I also have books, Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. I wrote that pretty deep into the pandemic. It was like May the 4th last year when I got the idea, because I was thinking about the Star Wars quote about how fear is a path to the dark side. And there's plenty of Americans who decided to go on the dark side. So I do have that book. It's available on Amazon. You can go to blacktnews.com, and there's an ad for it right there on the front of the website. So it's easy to find. So, and I do have other books as well those are all fiction, but this one is not. So go ahead and check out what I have. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that you would join me tomorrow at 4 p.m. again for the show, whether you're watching on my social media or watching on 100% Fed Up or Make Michigan Great Again, wherever I've shared it. Thank you guys for watching, but please consider joining me again tomorrow at 4 p.m. when we talk about a lot of the new stuff that we didn't get to today. But like I said, this is an important topic, and don't let these people do this. Don't let them get away with it. Not for money. Not for money. And the last thing I want to say, I'm a preacher, so we do a lot of closing. So this is the last I'm going to say. But some time ago, my sister ran for chair of the Michigan Republican Party, and I cut the videos and wrote the scripts and stuff when we did one. And so her intro video, it's like, why am I Republican? It's my history. And starts talking about how the party was formed to free the slaves. And, the Democrats who were against slavery, there was people who tried to join the Free Soil Party. That didn't pan out. But Democrats and the Whigs who were against slavery, they all came together and they formed the Republican Party. And so, of course, the Whigs and stuff died out. But I guess I have a saying now that, there's still Whigs out there. So my definition of a Republican, or when I decide that you are no longer a Republican, is when you are willing to put money and power above freedom and liberty of the people. So if you're to that point where you don't care about what the people of Michigan have to say, or that we're not built to be a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, but you don't care and you're willing to do this national popular vote thing, and kind of get rid of the Electoral College, though you're not technically doing it, but you're pretty much doing it. If you're willing to do that, knowing the consequences, knowing that we're not meant to do that, knowing the repercussions it can have, and you're willing to push that. Democrats are doing it for power, I understand that. Republicans who are pushing it, at least, we already saw, we heard it. It's a money thing. We can read between the lines. It's a money thing. So if that's what you're pushing for, you don't need to call yourself a Republican, in my eyes. You don't need to be a Republican anymore. So just stop calling it a bipartisan effort, because we've kicked you out. Good day.